everyone, welcome to another fun discussion with someone I met on Discord. His name is Jacob. He's a Christian, and we're going to be discussing free will. Before I jump into it, though, I just want to quickly share some news with you guys. So I'm sharing my screen. Cool. So, Deep Drinks Podcast is picking up some steam here. We got 226 subscribers. When we get to 1,000 subscribers, we're going to be doing a charity stream, 6 hours where we talk. I don't know what we're doing for the 6 hours, but it's going to be to raise money for charity. And the reason it's 1,000 subscribers is because when we get to 1,000 subscribers, I can start doing super chats and stuff. So if you want to support Deep Drinks Podcast, go to youtube.com/deepdrinks. And you can subscribe there. We have a couple of interesting guests in the future. We have a freedom of speech conversation with Stardust, who is a political streamer, which should be really fun. And then we've got the big boy, the big Mike coming back to discuss the problem of evil. And that one's going to be a really fun one. He's chosen Scotch again, so that's going to be a really good one. Also, if you like Deep Drinks Podcast, you can go to Podfollow. And you can check out links in the description. You can check out Deep Drinks, and you can listen to it on the way to work, etc. And have a good time. So last episode was Tea Jump, and this weekend's episode is the one with Stardust. So that all said, I am going to bring in Jacob, and we're going to have a discussion on free will. So welcome, Jacob.
Thank you, David, and thank you for having me.
Oh, no worries. I see a few smiling faces in the chat. Thanks, Jenna, for popping in. It's great to see you. So Jacob and I met on Discord, right?
Yeah, we met on Discord. I think you joined my server once, and then I was able to see your videos, and they were actually great. And I think in one video we got some, argument, and that has led us to plan for this. Yeah, it was nice.
Awesome. That sounds about right. So what is your perspective on free will?
Oh, I believe that free will exists.
Okay.
In a particular sense, not in everything, but in the particular sense, in the sense of morality, free will exists, not necessarily in other senses, so and other aspects. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So why is it that you think that we have free will in morality but not in other senses?
Oh, because in other senses, like for example, if we put morality aside, or the things that are concerned to morality aside, then everything else is what we choose is dependent on what we find to be the best way of getting comfort. The best comfort would be our best choice, and because the comfort is more likely determined by the existing environment, in those cases I think it appears as if we have free will, but ultimately we happen to choose the best, which is determined by the atmosphere. So in that sense, I don't think we have that kind of a free will as we have in morality.
What do you think? So do you think that in regards to like, so maybe you can, I'm struggling to understand that. So what separates like the free will in everyday decisions versus the free will in morality? Like how is that separate?
In case of morality, we happen to have a conflict between comfort and equality, or the moral conscience. And in order to illustrate, I can take an example. Suppose there is a person who is, the person has, he has undergone into a situation where he has two choices. One choice is that, uh, uh, like for example, let's say let's say like Hitler, or some other example where a person has a situation where he can do a crime, but he can get out of the, he can avoid the consequences by virtue of his political power, or something else, like some other thing like that, I guess. And he has two choices: either to um, I mean, obviously, if he doesn't do the crime, he would be losing comfort. But if he does the crime, he would be having to violate his moral impulse that he has from his childhood. So he has two options. He has two choices. One is either to violate the moral conscience, moral impulse, and go ahead and get the comfort, and the other choice is to uh, sacrifice his comfort for the sake of the moral impulse that he has. So in these two cases, I think there is, I mean, I think there is nothing in the laws of physics that can determine whether the person chooses A or B. So I think there, people have the choice. It depends on how the person respects the moral conscience versus the person respects, I mean, the person desires comfort more than moral conscience. So I think that's where free will exists.
So between like two choices, like A or B, someone has
Yeah.
the choice to choose A or B. Okay. What about, okay, so can you give me an example? I'm just trying to understand your position. Can you give me an example of something where we don't have free will?
I mean, in the sense, like, for example, if uh, I mean, I'm not saying that we don't have free will. It depends on, we don't have the same kind of free will that we have in moral conscience. As for example, I mean, an example for that would be like, suppose if I'm hungry, and I have, I mean, money to buy food, and there are two options. One is that I can pay the money and buy the food and have it, and another option is I would be uh, just, I mean, not willing to pay the money and not buying the food and just starving. So I think if there is no other reason, then I would be uh, going to buy food and eat the food. So even though I mean, speaking from pure logic, it happens to be the case that we have two cases. But obviously, we would be, I mean, everyone would be desiring, I mean, assuming other things are equal, everyone would be desiring to get the comfort of having the stomach filled with food. And so obviously in that case, we, even though it seems that we have free will, we don't exactly have the free will as in the case of moral things, because nothing is there to stop us from getting the food, and that is what we want, and nothing is there to stop. So obviously ultimately people would end up making that choice, uh, to buy the food and to eat it in order to not getting into starvation. So in that sense, I think that can be an example where it appears that we have free will, but not in the same sense that we have in case of morality.
Okay. Okay, I think I understand. So you're still saying you're saying that um to correct me if I'm wrong, but are you saying that um people can't choose what they want and don't want, so so they might be hungry, they can't choose whether or not they're hungry, and then but they can choose whether or not they purchase the food or not, is that right? Or are you saying if there is nothing in the way, they are going to always choose to purchase the food?
Oh, I think the first case, the first one that you described is the thing that I'm talking about. Like, they don't have a choice to choose whether they are hungry or not, and so in that sense, I mean, they don't have choice to choose not to be comfortable. I mean, to be comfortable without food. I mean, because obviously by virtue of the structure of their body and the atmosphere, I mean, and the environment, they happen to be finding comfort by having food. In that sense, they don't get to choose that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Someone has asked, and it's the question I was just about to ask, is what's your definition of free will? Is it the ability to choose to do anything at any time?
Oh no, my definition of free will is the ability to choose, to respect the moral impulse given. I mean, the moral, pure moral impulse of childhood. Despite the fact that it conflicts with the comfort. I mean, it's not necessarily always that it has to conflict with the comfort, but whenever there is a conflict of respecting the moral impulse with with the comfort, then people have choice either to choose to respect the moral conscience at the price of sacrificing the comfort, or to violate the moral impulse to get the comfort. So in that sense, that's what I mean by free will, I guess.
Okay. I think that we're using two different definitions of free will then, because my understanding of what free will is the ability to choose, is having no outside, no outside, being able to choose differently, right? So if I'm drinking I'm drinking liquid here, free will would be the choice not to drink that. It would be the choice of not being able to drink that. Well, I don't think we have that. I think that I was always going to drink this cup of Coke Zero, Coke no sugar.
Okay.
I don't think I had a choice in that matter. I think that's an illusion.
Oh, I mean, if I get it, what you say, if I get right what you said, what you're saying is, you have a choice whether to I mean, drink the Coke or not to drink. Well, but you ultimately do. For example, if you don't want to drink, that would ultimately to prove some point or something like that, or to get the most comfort that you feel at a particular time. So, in that sense, yeah, you have choice. But my point is that uh, the 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 action that you find to be the most comfortable uh, action is not chosen by you. In that sense, I'm saying. So yeah, that's why I said that it's not that we don't have free will, but it's like, I mean, my position was that it's not that we don't have free will, it's rather that we don't have free will in the exact same way that we have free will in case of morality. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah, in that sense I'm trying to say.
Okay, so would you say that Adam and Eve had free will? Because you're a Christian, so I believe we had a conversation a while ago where we talked about Adam and Eve. Is that right, or am I
Yeah,
confusing with someone else?
I don't know if we talked about Adam and Eve, but yeah, I think we did. I mean, I think we came across the discussion where if God knows everything, then whether free will
Mm.
exists or not. I think that's where we have got into an argument, and that has been very,
Okay.
yeah.
So, my question to you would be: did God know that Adam and Eve was going to sin before He created them?
I think it's quite possible that he knew that Adam and Eve would be going to sin, even though there is a slight possibility of taking the sentences, verses in the Bible metaphorically. I think that is very unlikely to happen. I think more likely it's the case that God knew that Adam and Eve would eat the fruit of, I mean, a fruit of knowledge of good and evil. I mean, they would be sinning. So yeah, I think God knew that.
Hmm. Okay, so if God knew that are you saying that He did know that they were going to sin?
Yeah, it's more likely the case that he did know. I mean, he knew that Adam and Eve were going to sin.
Um, could God have created a universe in which Adam and Eve didn't sin or weren't going to sin?
Basically, you're asking, could God have created a universe in which there was no temptation to Adam and Eve? That's what you're
No,
trying to
no,
ask.
no. So, okay, so um, this is probably where we're going to disagree. Okay, so I'm going to run you down a hypothetical thought, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
d- what did you eat breakfast this morning?
Oh, I think, I mean, I'm from India, so it is like uttappam. I think you might be not familiar with that kind of food, but yeah, uttappam, something like that.
Okay, cool. So you ate something. Um,
Yeah,
uh, why?
because that is what served. I mean, actually, I live in an, I mean, on campus housing of an institution where I have to e- eat whatever they serve in some sense. So yeah, that's why I chose.
Okay. Could you have chosen not to eat it though?
Yeah, it's possible. If I
Is-
had a better way of, I mean, if I had a path to choose in which I could find more comfort than this, I mean, choosing to eat, then maybe I would have chosen that path, I guess.
Why did you choose to eat though?
Because I found perhaps the most comfort in doing the things this way,
Okay.
and
Why
yeah.
did why do you find the most comfort doing things that way?
That's, I mean, dependent on how the universe is structured at that particular point. And I mean, like, I mean, if I have to eat something else, I would have had to, take some membership in some other restaurant, which might be not much, much not much beneficial to me, maybe. So I ended up taking subscription here. So I'm
Oh
having it
yeah,
here.
that's fine. Like we're past that part where you've chosen to eat the meal, but why did you choose to eat it?
I'm not getting it. Can you show the proper
Like,
dichotomy of yeah?
well, my guess is probably because you're hungry.
Okay. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's one aspect. Yeah, if I were not hungry, I would have not taken the food. Yeah.
Okay. Why were you hungry?
Because that's, I mean, my body needs it. I mean, it's like something that I did not choose by my own.
Okay. Why does your body need it?
Because God created it that way. I mean, it's like that's how things are. I mean, uh, that's what I found from my senses. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so would you agree though that if you were like if you had some form of like severe disability, and you couldn't actually you didn't have the cognitive ability to work out that you needed to go to the kitchen to get food, and you had a carer, and this carer would often bring you to get food. If that carer didn't rock up, you wouldn't eat that morning, would you?
I mean, can you repeat it again? I mean, I just lost the
Sorry,
connection.
I've got a strong Australian accent as well.
No, no, fine. I mean,
Um,
I just, yeah, please,
it's
please go ahead.
it's essentially what I'm saying is, let's say you didn't have the cognitive ability. Let's say you were mentally disabled and you didn't have the cognitive ability to eat to choose to eat food. You had to have a carer, right? If you didn't have a carer, you'd starve. You wouldn't eat breakfast. You wouldn't eat that food. You would
Well,
agree, yeah?
I think we have to dig into what exactly mental disability actually means, because I can't visualize. I mean, we can just say that a person has mental disability, but in what sense? How is it? How did people come to know that this is the case? I mean, I think it's
Mm,
a lot. I mean, it depends on those things, and I think I don't think a person has. Mental ability more than what other people have. Maybe in some sense the magnitude is more in case of some people, but I think that kind of uncertainty could exist in other people as well. I mean, I think it's more about a distinction between what happens in a regular basis and whether some people conform to that kind of a behavior or not. But I don't think that's a disability in the sense. So yeah, if a
okay.
person,
So
yeah.
so the hypothetical that I was trying to lead down is essentially like you had the mental faculty to decide to get up, get dressed, go to the places where you're going to eat and eat food. But
Yeah,
that mental faculty wasn't your choice. You didn't choose, like, you weren't, pre-birth. There wasn't a character slider that gave you those mental faculties to be able to go do that. So much so, like, if someone was severely mentally retarded, they couldn't and so much so that they couldn't function, they couldn't walk, they couldn't talk, they couldn't do anything. They may need someone to feed them food. And that wasn't their choice either. So when it comes to, like, you had a choice whether or not to eat this morning, well, you did in some degree, like, in that, like, that you had that there's an illusion of having that choice. But my point would be that the further you go back, eventually it comes back to biological processes that we can't control. So you had the mental faculty to put two and two together and go, if I go to this place, I can get food. I am hungry, therefore I want to go get this food. And then you go and you eat the food, right? Like those processes are part of, like, your chemistry, your brain chemistry, not part of anything else. So and just to lead you right to the conclusion of where my argument would go, is God created Adam and Eve with the same brain chemistry that they had, in which case they could not have chosen any other thing but to eat the fruit. And this is where I think we'll disagree.
Well, I think, firstly, speaking about the disability, I still am not like, I still couldn't visualize what it means by disability. But even if we keep the
It's not
disability
that part.
part
That
aside.
let's just let's remove that. It's irrelevant, kind of.
Okay,
It was just it was
so basically, if you're saying that people have biological need of doing something, but yet they don't have the ability to do such thing, you're basically asking, what if God would have created Adam in such a way that he could eat the fruit, but he has so much of disability that even though he wants to eat it,
oh
he wouldn't be able to eat it. Is it
no, what I'm saying is, okay, let's say Adam was, genuinely a bit of a risk taker. He loved taking risks. He was quite boisterous. Before he ate the fruit, he was jumping and swinging from trees. He was spanking Eve's ass. He was running around like just being a bit reckless. That personality trait comes from his brain chemistry. Would you agree? Like he
I
didn't
don't think
choose to
so.
do that.
I don't
Okay.
think so. I think it depends on experience. Depends on what kind of what kind of experience he has come through. I mean, what kind of things he has faced in his life. So I think it's dependent on that. And I think what you're asking about. If I get it right, I think you're trying to ask, what if Adam did it just for the sake of risk? Taking risk without having an intention to cause harm to others. I mean, why is it wrong? Is it the question that you're trying to make?
No, I'm saying that
Mm,
that Adam's environment and his
mm.
brain chemistry is what made
Okay.
is like, what else is there that made the like what else is there besides his brain chemistry and his environment and everything else around him, that what else is there that causes him to make decisions?
Okay, yeah, I think I got your question. You're basically saying that Adam had the best comfort in eating the tree based on given his molecules and the chemistry in his brain, and what did what else is there to facilitate him the choice not to eat it? Well, I think that we have the moral conscience. I mean, Adam has both the pieces of knowledge. One is that he finds comfort or enjoyable state in by eating the fruit. That's one piece of knowledge. Another piece of knowledge is that he has made an agreement with God that he wouldn't eat it. So when so one piece of knowledge shows to him that it is good to eat it, but another piece of knowledge shows to him that he ought not to eat it. So there is a conflict. So when there is a conflict, that's his personal choice is what determines what to choose. I mean, physical laws can facilitate either of them. I mean, so it doesn't it it doesn't have the uh, completeness to determine whether Adam wanted to violate the agreement that he made with God and get to the comfort zone, or to uh, sacrifice the comfort zone by by obeying the promise that he made to God. So I think that's what gives him the extra parameter that allows him to choose between two things.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not. And it's probably my fault, but I'm not. I don't think I'm communicating what I'm thinking properly. But I have a bit of a syllogism. Can I give you my syllogism, and we
Yeah,
can go
sure,
through
sure,
that?
sure.
Let me just quickly put them, create some banners for us. Okay.
Okay.
So, and I'm not a philosopher, so please no one judge me. This is
Yeah, that's
my
fine.
first attempt at trying to build a
No,
kind of form.
no,
Okay,
that's
so
fine.
my first claim will
Okay.
be
Mhm.
our choices are a product of our consciousness. Would you agree?
Our choices are a product of, I mean, it depends on how you define consciousness. I mean, whether it is both, f- whether it is knowledge plus mind, or just, I mean, brain plus mind, or simply brain, or, I mean, it depends on how you define consciousness, I guess.
Well, we can define that together if you like. The
Okay.
working, I looked it up today because I
Mhm.
was trying to define my terms, and the definition I'd like to work with is the state of being aware of the responsive to the surroundings, to one's surroundings. So I'm just talking about the act of being aware of your surroundings.
Oh, well, then I don't think that statement is necessarily true, because people can know that something is, something is wrong, but they could act upon it if they find comfortable. I mean, if people can be in a state of knowing that they are violating the moral conscience that they are having, but yet could decide to violate that moral conscience. So I think that choice, if he wants to violate moral conscience, then I don't think conscience is enough to determine what choice he would be taking. So I
Not
don't think the
not not
statement.
um not not like consciousness as in like being awake, like not being asleep, like being conscious, like being like, you know how they put you under when you go into surgery and then you come out of it, you're out of the beneath
Okay.
what's it called?
Okay, so then I don't think that statement. I mean, I would disagree with. I mean, I don't think that statement is true in all cases. Maybe in some cases it might be true, but not
How,
necessarily in all cases, I guess.
okay, how can you make a choice if you're not conscious?
Oh, I'm not saying that we can make a choice without consciousness. What I'm saying is that consciousness might be not sufficient to determine the choices that we would make. So our choices might be a product of our consciousness and something else. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, do you know what that's? Do you have an idea of what that something else is?
Oh, a person's choice. I mean, a person's what the person wants to choose in terms of morality. So that's, I think, a
But
choice.
isn't that consciousness?
No, consciousness tells us whether it is a violation of moral impulse or not, but it doesn't. It doesn't force you to do anything. You have to take a choice. You have to make your stand to either to obey the moral conscience at the cost of sacrificing the comfort, or to get the comfort at the cost of violating the
But
moral conscience.
you're
So
you're you're kind of jumping the gun there a little bit, I think. You're kind of going to the conclusion by saying that we have a choice between choosing right and wrong. But I'm
mhm.
asking you, like we're way back at the start. I'm just asking you, can you make a choice without being conscious?
uh,
Like
uh, uh,
conscious as in like awake, conscious as in being like being alive. Like could you have made a
yeah, of
choice
course.
before you were
Yeah,
born, or could you
yeah,
could you
yeah. Okay, I think I got your question. Without consciousness, would I be able to make a choice? I don't think I would be able to make a choice without consciousness. Yeah.
okay, okay. Um the second premise is our consciousness is a product of naturalistic processes of the brain.
Okay, that's what I was asking in the first. I mean, to define consciousness. Okay, I think you got it in the same way. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
um, okay, so I think I would disagree with the second premise. I guess, like, our consciousness is
Okay.
a product of naturalistic products process. So yeah.
Okay. That's where I think we would disagree, especially because did you grow up in India?
Yes, I'm still
The,
in India. I never traveled to any country yet.
okay. So I imagine even outside of even that you'd have a different perspective inside of Christianity, but even outside of Christianity, there's a very different perspective of consciousness and the brain and mind than we have in the West. So I thought we would disagree on this part for sure. Um, well, I'll give you my two other syllogisms, and then maybe we can go back to the second premise. But my other two syllogisms was
Sure. Yeah.
our brain performs all of its functions contingent on its chemistry and environment, and then humanity cannot post hoc influence those contingencies. But we'll go back to the second one because that's where I think we will disagree. I can give you, and I don't know if we're going to, I don't know if we're going to um, if we're going to be able to solve it, because obviously consciousness isn't solved. So maybe I don't know if we should if we should go down a different path, but so uh
I
uh
mean, yeah.
there's
So
not
I mean,
there's another way to put this, and I'll just quickly run you through this.
okay.
All events in nature are determined by physical forces. All human actions are events in nature. Therefore, all human actions are determined by physical forces.
Um, I don't think all human actions are determined by physical forces. I think all human
Okay.
actions that the humans choose to do are determined by physical forces. I think.
Okay. So um it seems like you're stuck on, well, not stuck, I won't say that. That's, I don't want to sound belittling or something, but it sounds like you're stuck on choice. Someone before mentioned asked why you have why you think so much about comfort versus non-comfort and the choice there. Why is that important to you, to free will?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question. Can you repeat it?
Um when it comes to why is comfort and non-comfort, why is that a factor in free will?
Oh, I mean, I think God made. I mean, I'm saying my position. I think God made humans. He gave us the moral conscience, as it's written in Romans second chapter 14, 15 verses. I guess He gave us a moral conscience that somehow tells us that this is important. The obedience to moral conscience is important at all costs. Like, for example, that's how we say that Hitler is wrong. That's how we say it, if a person has, like, Jeffrey Epstein did something with children. So we say that that's wrong because we I mean, we feel this moral conscience that tells us this should take the precedence. So yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
I under
yeah.
I understand that, yeah. Okay, well, can I give you, so I found this out today, but I knew of another situation that was quite similar to this, but, and sorry to be morbid for everyone, but, so in the year 2000, there was a 40-year-old man, and he'd
Okay.
never had any attraction to children before, but all of a sudden he started finding himself really attracted to children. He found himself getting pedophilic thoughts, and he started collecting child pornography, and he started to molest his stepdaughter. Horrible situation. I'm not condoning any form of molestation or anything, child pornography, anything, right? But when he was going through trial, when he was caught, he kept complaining of really bad headaches, and they took him to get checked out, and they found that he had a massive tumor in one part of his brain. They cut it out, and instantly after he recovered, his pedophilic thoughts, his attraction to children, just left, and he was now repulsed and disgusted that he chose to make the decisions that he did, or he did the things that he did. So he went through the court case, and he got tried and all that stuff. Years later, he started finding that he was attracted to children again. Worried, he went back to the doctor, and he asked them to scan his brain. They scanned it, and they found, in fact, he had the tumor growing again in that part of his brain. They cut it out for a second time, and when they cut it out, his thoughts went away. His negative thoughts about children, his sexual thoughts about children. Now, this isn't the case for 99.999% of people who are attracted to children. Sorry, that's my dog barking in the background. This isn't the case for most people attracted to children, but for this person, it was the case that the physical processes of his brain seemed to have a direct effect on his actions, on his choices, and his actions. And I was wondering how you square that with things like in a situation like that.
Okay, so I think I understood your question very clearly. So firstly, I mean, I personally have some skepticism about what I mean the scientific people say, but let's leave it aside. I think the case you described could be. I mean, it is possible that what you're trying to describe is this, that when there is a tumor, the person happened to feel more discomfort by not molesting that child, and having, I mean, feeling more discomfort when the tumor less discomfort when the tumor is removed. But that ends up to the same thing that I said. I mean, he has two situations where the first one is that he can sacrifice his comfort for the sake of morality. And the reason why we disagree, we believe that molesting children is wrong. Of course, that's what the moral conscience is. But if we want to describe it, it's basically that children. I mean, firstly, forcing anyone is like a bad thing, and second thing
Mm.
is that even if the child has consented, I mean, uh, we all know that. I mean, people who had experienced the world would know that children at that age would be more susceptible. I mean, more more prone to. I mean, they can't they don't know the entire how the entire world works, and how much of cheating exists in the world. So their consent would make very little I mean very little accuracy on what they actually want to have. So soon after they leave their childhood, I mean, and pass to their adulthood, they may find that their earlier choices are actually, in fact, I mean, like, not very good choices. So for such reasons, we know that it is not good for to molest a child. So if he ended up doing that despite this fact, just because he wants to find comfort that the tumor is not allowing him to have, then it again ends up to the same thing. Like, for example, if a person has no money but wants to eat food, so he may either choose to steal some other person's like shop or something and get the food. I mean, he can claim that his need is making him do it. Still, we agree that that is so I mean I have some empathy towards that person who is hungry but not having food. But I think we can agree that it breaks down to whether to choose comfort over morality or morality over comfort. So I think that thing is like it is consistent with what I said about free will, etc. I guess.
Okay. Um, okay. I just want everyone who is watching, if you want to go in the description, there is a link to Jacob's Discord. If you want to have conversations with Jacob or anyone, he runs a Christian Discord, but it's welcome to anyone. That's right. It's welcome to anyone, isn't it? Because I'm
Yeah,
part
yeah,
of
of
it.
course.
So yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So welcome to
yeah,
everyone, as long as you have respectful conversations. So if you want to have these conversations with Jacob or anyone, you can head over there. Links in the description. And of course, make sure you subscribe to this channel and youtube.com/deepdrinks so we can get that charity stream happening at 1,000 subscribers. But so Jacob, I think that I'm confused with your definition. Just getting back into it, I think I'm confused with your definition because, like, the way I look at it, right? If you, let's say we're in a room and there are two buttons. One button kills someone and gives you $100, and one button gives $100 to someone else. Which button would you press?
I'm sorry. One button. I mean, if by hitting the first button, someone would be killed and the money would be given to me. And if
Yeah.
I press the other button, the person would still be killed, but the money would be given to some other person. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, it wouldn't be killed. It would just be given to you. Money would just be given to you. Well,
Given to some other person.
Let's simplify it. Let's simplify it. Let's say there's a green button and a red button. The red button was a bad button. The green button was a good button.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What button would you choose?
Oh, I mean, obviously, I should choose good button. I mean, obviously, I mean, what I would choose. I mean, I don't know. God knows, but I mean, I am just a human. I'm not a god, so I may end up committing sins. But if you are asking about what I should do, then yeah, I should choose to hit the good button, I guess.
Okay. Why would you choose the green button?
Because I have the moral conscience, which I believe God has given to me from my childhood,
Okay.
that tells that I ought to hit the green button, I guess.
Okay. If you grew up, sorry. So you have this moral consciousness. Where did that come from?
Oh, I believe that God has created humans that way. That every person has the moral conscience from the childhood. Yeah.
Okay. Is that if you didn't believe in God, would you still believe that people have a choice there?
Well, it depends on what believing in God exactly reduces to. I mean, if you are basically saying that if by not believing God, does it is it equivalent to saying that if a person doesn't believe in the value of the moral conscience that the person has, I mean, is it
Well,
equivalent? Yeah.
so so I'm a naturalist, right? So I believe that everything in the universe I don't believe in supernatural agents. I don't believe in gods or ghosts or demons or witches. Well, I believe in witches, but I don't believe in the supernatural aspects of those things. Um, I so I believe that everything can be explained through natural processes or things that we haven't discovered yet. So when I look at something like the choice, I'm imagining that there's something happening with brain chemistry or a natural law that gets people to choose a certain thing. But you're positing that God gave us this free will. So the conversation isn't really about free will anymore. It's actually about a God belief. Like what I'm trying to get at is, if you didn't believe in God, would you still believe in free will? Because then we can still have a conversation about free will. Otherwise, I have to question you on your God belief.
Oh, well, I mean, I think based on what you're saying, I think you. I mean, if we define the belief of God to be equivalent to the belief in the value of the moral conscience that we feel, then I think it. I mean, it reduces to whether we believe in God or not. But we don't. I mean, if you follow the general meaning of what it means by belief in God, like how people identify themselves to be believers of God, then I don't think that is like exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, what I am trying to say is that the value of the moral conscience that we have would be real only if God exists. I mean, only if afterlife exists and perfect justice happens. That our moral conscience points towards. So only if that happens, the value of moral conscience would be real. Otherwise, the value of moral conscience would simply be an illusion. So, in order for that moral conscience to be enforced, obviously it's not getting enforced in this world. So if there is an afterlife in which that moral conscience happens to be enforced, then that enforcer is what I'm referring to as God. So in that case, I mean, if you're asking like whether a person I mean, whether a person can be moral without belief in God, by the connections that I'm making, it seems to be reducing to whether a person can believe, a person can be moral without believing that the value of moral conscience is real. But if you're not saying that, if you're simply asking if a person who doesn't identify himself to be a believer in God by virtue of his professing by words, would he still be able to be good? Yes, that person can still be good if that person obeys the value of moral conscience, which is basically I am trying to say to be equivalent to the existence of God.
Is there so is but if you didn't believe in God, would you still believe in free will? Like if you stop believing in God, do you have a naturalistic reason to believe in free will, or do you just believe that God gave us the free will?
If when you say that if I don't believe in God, does that mean if I don't believe in the value of moral conscience? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean free will as in the ability to make a choice between the green button or the red button.
In case of moral situations, right? In case, I mean, that
Well,
green
yeah,
button and red button come into picture only if we consider the value of the moral conscience that tells us green, but we ought to press green button, or we have to give
yeah,
priority
yeah,
to
yeah,
green
yeah.
button.
So
Only if
we
that
can use that.
value. Yeah, so can I complete it?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, thank you. So what I'm trying to say is that only if we assume that the value of the moral conscience that tells us that green button is priority is real, then I mean this the question makes sense, right? So when you're asking that question, you are presupposing that the value is real, right? The value of the moral conscience that we have is real, right?
N- No, I'm simply asking whether or not, if you believed in God, yeah, if you stopped believing in God, would you believe that we have the free will to press the green or the red, or would you stop believing in free will?
Well, I think it depends on what you exactly mean by believing in God and not believing in God. Can you,
Uh,
like, define that
yeah,
first?
say if you became an atheist like me. You no longer believed in supernatural agents. You only believed in naturalistic. Let's say become a naturalist. You only believed in natural processes.
But do you believe in the value of moral conscience that you have?
Well, I don't really. Morality is a tricky subject, but I'm doing a lot of reading into morality at the moment. But I don't believe I believe that morality is like mostly socially constructed, and it's like this word that we use to try and define things that don't actually exist in nature. But that morality is a different subject.
But I think that the answer that you, I mean, the answer to the question that you're asking depends on what you exactly mean by believing in God. If by believing in God, if you restrict I mean, classification to the people who believe in the value of moral conscience, then there will be one answer. And if you don't restrict that part, then there would be another answer. So I'm trying to,
Okay, so
yeah, yeah.
give me an answer for both. Give me an answer for both.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. If you mean, I mean, if a person believes, I mean, that the more value of moral conscience is real, then obviously that person would be having, I mean, believing in free will. And if the value of if the person happens to believe that the moral conscience is the value of moral conscience, I mean, he believes that the moral conscience exists, but he also believes that the value of that is an illusion. If that is the case, and if we assume that that person is in steady state, not in a transient state where he could not analyze all of his minds. I mean, assuming that he has analyzed all of his mind, all of his calculations, and made a conclusion. In that state, I think it's not. I mean, I think that person can't believe in free will either. If he is consistent with all the beliefs that follow from the presupposition that the value of moral conscience is an illusion. So yeah,
Okay.
that's what.
Okay. So I think I understand. So if someone believes in God and the moral conscience, they'll likely believe that we have free will. If someone doesn't believe in moral conscience and God, they're likely to be
Not
consistent. They're
ex-
likely.
I'm sorry. Exactly.
I'm just
I mean, people. Yeah.
what I'm after is just a yes or a no, like a concise answer, not like a just like a yes, and then maybe you can add a little extender on the end of that, or no. Because like I'm getting confused in the dialogues a little bit. I'm
So
getting confused with what you're talking about.
I can clarify if you prefer, but if you want me to try to give an yes or no answer, that's fine. But I have.
I'm
Yeah.
this part of the conversation is just me trying to work out whether or not we need to have a conversation about your God belief or whether or not we can have a conversation from a naturalistic worldview. Because if we can't have a conversation from a naturalistic worldview, we have to move on to the God belief in order to keep talking about free will, because that's the area of disagreement. If we do both subscribe to naturalistic, if we both do think it's possible from a naturalistic perspective, then we can have a conversation about the naturalistic perspective of free will. So I'm asking whether or not, if you became an atheist, if you stopped believing in your particular God and your particular ideas of the universe, would you then still believe in free will? Because if you do believe in free will, then we can attack it from a naturalistic perspective. Like we can have a conversation there, or we can move on to the God belief. I don't mind which way we go. I'm just trying to get a simple, quick answer so I know which direction to take this conversation. That's all.
I mean, since we have, a complexity in understanding about what it means by belief in God, can we remove semantic thing, and shall we reduce to? I mean, can we reduce to, like, discussing on whether a person who doesn't believe in the value of moral conscience can believe in free will, or a person who does
Yeah,
believe in the
yeah,
yeah.
we can do that. So we can pretend like in this hypothetical section of our conversation, we're not assuming a God. We're not assuming there isn't a God. We're just talking about moral. What did he call it? The moral. I'm going to write it down.
I mean,
The
the
moral.
conscience, but I'm talking about the value of moral conscience. I mean, a person could still believe that moral conscience exists and still believe that the value of that moral conscience is an illusion. So I'm talking about the value of moral conscience, not merely the existence of moral conscience.
Okay, in like 30 seconds, can you please, or less, can you define what the value of moral conscience is?
It's just like the value of any other objective truth. I mean, just like suppose if if I say that okay, if you could give me a 1 minute, I would like to say an example which would be clearing a lot of things, I guess.
Well, can you give me like a definition and then we can hear the example? Just because, just so I can so I can write it down, like a sentence.
If I have to say by a definition, I should say that anything that has virtue in this in an objective sense, that is what I mean by value. So, but I think that is not
Anything that
very
has
clear, so that's why I was thinking of
Okay,
explaining it with an
so
example.
yeah, just so because I'm getting a bit lost. So this is just to help me. So the value of moral consciousness is anything that has virtue, objectively.
Yeah,
Okay, anything that has anything that.
anything.
So that's the.
So can I mean, it is like inclusive of anything that has anything that has objective virtue. It is not limited to that, but it is inclusive in some sense, I guess. Yeah.
And that's just for the word value. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so anything that has objective virtue.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could reword this to say the anything that has hang on, how would you reword this? The value of moral consciousness, and the word value there means anything that has objective virtue. Can you
Um.
define what you mean by objective virtue?
Can I give an example of it? I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that would
you
be
can give an
okay.
example as long
Okay.
as we've written this down, so we don't move off it.
Okay,
Um,
thank you. So, suppose there is a website. I mean, I'm making a hypothetical example. So, suppose
yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
there is a website called, I mean, buymars.com, where they sell the title deeds. I mean, they sell the title deeds for lands on Mars, and many celebrities have purchased some lands on Mars. And I was like, actually, I said, is this in many cases like suppose I purchased a land, a piece of land on Mars, or let us say a person has purchased the uh, piece of land from on Mars from bymars.com, and suppose he happened to go someday in 2050 or something like this, 2060, he happened to go to Mars by means of some space shuttle along with other people, and he landed on Mars, and along with the other people he found out the part of land by the coordinates, but he found that that part of that piece of land was already occupied by the people that came along with him. And then
Mhm.
he tried to, I mean, I'm just making a hypothetical, so I mean, like, so, and he tried calling the customer care service of bymars.com, and they said that, sir, we don't have security personnel yet in available in Mars, on the land of Mars, but we recognize, we and we confirm that you are the owner of the title deed, and those who are I mean occupying your land are committing felony. So that's what they replied. They said, sorry, I mean, we don't have security personnel, but they're saying that we still believe in a film that you are the owner of the land. So that raises the question: is that title deed having any value if it is not enforced? I mean, if the value of I mean, if the value of the title deed exists, I mean, if the value of the title deed is real, then the security personnel should have been sent to make sure that the ownership of the person is enforced. But if they are not doing that, but simply writing it on a piece of paper, saying that you are the owner, that title it doesn't have any value. So the value exists only if it is enforced. In that sense, I am talking about virtue, objective value of something.
Okay, so objective virtue. In that example, what would the objective virtue be?
The fact that it is the enforcement, I mean, we can see the reality of it when it is enforced. But if it is not enforced, then the value of the title deed would simply be an illusion. So that is the virtue or value that I'm talking about.
The title deed. So the title deed's enforcement. Is that right?
I mean, in that
The-
particular example, so I'm trying to generalize that thing, that that is
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
value. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So so we're talking about the value of moral consciousness, right? Which is where you think free will is, right?
Okay, I mean that plays a role in determining free. I mean that doesn't decide free. I mean the choices, but it is a factor that comes in making choices. Right?
Okay, and the value of moral consciousness is, and the word value of moral consciousness, and then within that is, within the word value there is anything that has objective virtue, and that is title deed enforcement in this example.
Yeah, in this example, in this aspect, that yeah, that would be an enforcement of title deed, because if there is no enforcement, that the value of title deed would be an illusion. Even though the title deed exists, the value of it would be an illusion. So in that sense, I'm trying to say.
Okay. Um, okay, I don't know why that, to me, that doesn't line up with objective virtue at all.
Okay, what do you think objective virtue is?
Well, the word objective just means not subject um, to opinion, like subjective opinion. So
Hmm.
it's outside of opinion. And
Yeah.
virtue is just, let me just Google what virtue is. It's like good, right?
Mhm.
Virtue is behaving, showing high moral standards. So it looks like objective virtue here is just like objective virtue would seem like it's begging the question.
Well, I'm
Like you're
not
saying,
proving anything. I'm just defining. Since you asked about it,
yeah,
I'm.
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah. But what I'm saying is you're sneaking in the conclusion in your premises or in your ideas.
well, because I don't have any other words to describe the thing. So I'm giving
So
example. I mean, yeah.
well maybe we can go right back to the drawing board and we'll write down each step by step. So
Okay.
there's a red button and a green button, right? Green button good, red button bad. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? What do you call that thing? Like? Do you believe you have? Sorry. So red button good, green button bad. Do you believe that you have the free will to choose either button?
Oh, so you're saying red button is good? I thought you were
Oh,
saying red
sorry,
button.
sorry. Sorry.
No
Red
problem.
button bad,
Yeah.
red button
Okay.
bad, green button good.
Okay.
Do you believe you have the free will to choose either button?
Only if it happens to be in conflict with comfort, which I think the case that you're talking about.
Okay, so if it's not, um, so do you believe that you don't have free will if it doesn't have anything to do with comfort?
It's not in the same way that we have in moral morality. So in that sense,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know it's not. I know it's not in the same way, but it's like a. So how would someone not like? Okay, what's an example that doesn't include moral? Let's choose between eating a cookie or eating a biscuit. Right, two things
oh
that we have in Australia. So
yeah.
would that be a moral choice?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I mean, eating a cookie, if it doesn't cause harm to any other. I mean, basically, if it doesn't violate the moral conscience, then obviously it doesn't have any conflict. So obviously, the person would be assuming that other things are equal. The person would obviously be choosing to eat that. I mean, cookie, I guess. So in that case, there is no conflict, and therefore there is no temptation, and there is no free will in the sense that we are talking in a moral context, I guess.
Okay, so there would be no free will. So you don't have the ability to choose what you are going to eat, really.
It depends on, like, we have the ability to choose what we desire, but we don't have the ability to choose what the environment I mean causes us to desire. I mean something like that, I guess.
Uh, right. It seems like we're in agreement when it comes to free will in regards to choices. I just don't know why you um, believe that there is free will when it comes to moral choice.
Because there are two choices which neither of it can be determined by the mere physical laws. Like as I said, the one choice is to violate the moral consciences, get the comfort, and another choice is to sacrifice the comfort to get morality. So
What
nothing in physical, yeah.
what if someone gave you a drug that affected your consciousness?
I don't think the consciousness. I mean, if you're saying that that affects the magnitude of consciousness, is that what you're saying?
Like, well, what if
Um,
like
Okay, if
yeah,
that's
what
the
if
case, then I think the that person would be judged based on that amount. Like for example, as I said, if a person has everything to eat, drink, etc., and if the person has committed I mean, stealing from a shop, and another person B who did not have food to eat and is hungered, and if he committed a theft from a shop, I think I don't think both the two persons would be judged in with the same I mean, with the same kind of punishment. I mean, it depends on how much they have violated the moral conscience. So yeah, as you're saying that if a person has been given drug in which the magnitude of this violation of moral conscience or the ability of these things happen to be reduced a little bit, so I mean, in that case the judgment would be based on that particular person's ability at that point of time. So yeah, God takes all of these things into consideration to make the final judgment. So yeah, it doesn't violate the judgment. So yeah,
but
that's
it,
what I
but yeah, it doesn't violate the judgment. But I'm talking about free will. Does someone, like, if someone is given something that they become intoxicated, are they responsible for their actions? If they didn't choose to take the drug, are they then responsible for their actions?
Yeah, I mean, maybe in a reduced magnitude, but yes, they are responsible for their actions, but depending on
Well,
how much they have violated the moral conscience.
well, it can be like um there are some drugs that you can take that will lower your ambition so much that you will tell anyone anything, like nothing is a secret. So if someone was to like give this like type of drug to the president of America or to someone and they were to tell national secrets, would that be them breaking, would they be engaged in acting in free will there?
So you're saying that the drug temporarily reduces the amount of the magnitude of moral conscience that the person feels at a particular place. I mean, or it reduces the cognitive ability to a little. I mean, to a place where it is like comparable to taking other choices. In that case, he's by doing that, he's not violating the moral conscience that much. So my point is that if he, I mean, in that case there is no conflict in some sense between moral conscience and so what I'm trying to basically say is that how much he violates the moral conscience is what determines how much he is accountable in some sense. But in most of the cases, in regular cases, we won't be seeing and it should be without the knowledge of the person who took the drug. Like for example, if a person has I mean, without making the person know, without making the president of the country know that he is actually mixing it. But if the president knew that he's mixing it, then the president is accountable for allowing him to do it and drinking it with that knowledge. So yeah, if you're talking about the particular case, the rare case, then yeah, in that case the moral conscience itself might be having might be of less magnitude, but the same thing applies. Maybe in that case the violation of moral conscience might be less or something like that, but the thing applies. I mean, he would be accountable for the amount of violation of moral conscience, which in your case is, I mean, which in the case that you're explaining is very less. But yeah, he would be accountable for that small amount of moral conscience. Maybe he would be getting a less punishment, but yeah, he is ultimately accountable for it, I guess.
Okay, so he would be operating with free will, even though he doesn't have free will. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, if you are saying that he would, I mean, I'm saying that the value of, I mean, magnitude of the moral conscience that he would be feeling is very less. If you're talking about the hypothetical example where he would be feeling zero moral conscience, is that what you're trying to say? I mean, if that is the case, then yeah, obviously there won't be any conflict with moral conscience. So in that case, he won't be accountable. But I don't think that would be the case, because if that were the case, then he would be.
Yeah, but I'm getting confused because you beat around the bush a lot.
Mm, mm,
It's fine to clarify, but I need like a simple yes or no. So
mhm.
yes, and then you can clarify, or no, and then you can clarify, because I don't know where to like grasp onto with my thoughts into where you're
Okay.
going.
Okay.
So
So you, yeah. So you're asking.
if someone is like, if
Mhm,
someone is drugged, right,
mhm.
they didn't choose to take the drugs, they're drugged, or even if they do take the drugs, they're drugged, and then
Mhm.
they now no longer have full they no longer have full mental faculties. Are they operating within free will?
I have two questions to clarify the question:
Yeah.
whether they took it knowingly or unknowingly, and that's one thing. And second thing is, are you talking about a state of mind where they have zero feeling of moral conscience? So, can you clarify these two things?
um it, it doesn't really matter, but I'll answer anyway. No, they didn't know they were taking it. Someone just slipped it into their drink. And then the second thing is, yes, it removes all ability to make to think with their normal faculties.
Well, in that case, there would be no moral free will. Moral free will. There would be no moral free will. But you said
Right.
that
So,
after
wait,
saying
wait,
no,
wait.
you, okay.
Just say
You
yes or
said,
no, and then go
yeah.
on.
I said no, but you also
Okay.
gave me
So
the
no
option to
free will.
explain.
So they don't have free will.
No moral free will. I mean, there could be, yeah, in some sense, yeah, there won't be free will. Yeah, I mean, in some, if you're talking about free will to be able to choose the what the person would be desiring, so, then yeah, that person won't be having free will. So in that sense, yeah, no free will. But since you gave me an option to explain that thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think in that case he wouldn't be able to recognize anything else in this world, because I can show that the same moral conscience that uh, puts us at an obligation to believe that Hitler is objectively wrong, is also the same moral conscience that the same conscience that also puts us at an obligation to believe in the uh, philosophical presuppositions of the objective truth. Let's say the objectivity of laws of logic, the principle of inductive reasoning, etc.
Yeah.
It's the same moral conscience that derives both of this. So if the person feels zero moral obligation, that should also imply that the person feels zero I mean ability to interpret objective truth. So yeah, that would be the
Um.
consequence. But yeah, your answer is no, as
I
you
feel like
asked.
we're getting like lost a little. Well, I'm getting lost. Sorry, and it may be my fault, or maybe just like it struggles with translating with cultural barriers and things like that. Um, but I just want to ask you, just before we wrap up. So you keep referencing this moral consciousness. Do you believe that we all have this moral consciousness?
Yes, we do have.
And what did Hitler do wrong there?
Oh, he
That
violated
don't clip that. Yeah,
okay.
don't clip that. I'm just trying to tell people don't clip that.
I'm
Obviously,
not
Hitler does
clipping.
wrong. I'm asking you. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. So
I just don't.
okay, so we all have a moral conscience given by God, which is a moral law, not a set of moral codes, but a moral law, a moral value, which
Mhm.
in different circumstances derives what moral actions we have to take, and we should obey, and we should obey and not to do so. In that sense, we all have a moral law, moral conscience given by God from childhood. And Hitler, at some point of his life, must have violated that moral conscience in order to come to a state where his own rewritten, edited moral conscience says that there is nothing wrong to in killing Jews. So that the change at some point of he must have made this
Yeah.
transition, and that transition is what he did as wrong thing, I guess. I mean, that's where
Okay.
he did
So
wrong.
yeah. So what he like genocide and the killing of Jews and gypsies and everything was wrong, right?
Yeah, I mean, in order to order that, he must have violated his childhood moral concepts at some point of time. So that's where
Yeah,
he
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. I'm just asking though, like I'm just asking you very simply, like what he did wrong. So it's the genocide and the killing of Jews,
It's a
right? So
violation of the moral conscience, basically.
okay, so what does your moral conscience say when you read about Israel killing
Mhm.
infants and people in the Bible and God commanding it? What does your
Yeah,
moral
obviously,
conscience say about that?
yeah, obviously, that's not the perfect moral way of doing it, but given
Well,
the
but it
circumstance, yeah,
isn't God fully moral? One
he's.
John
I mean,
says there's no darkness in him at all, that he's pure light.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
One John says that
Mm,
God is pure light, and in him
mm.
there is no darkness at all.
Oh, what it means by that is not that God does uh, God is obligated to do moral things like we humans do. It rather says about what God wants to be the moral truth. I mean, God did not give a moral conscience to anyone that he to that says that killing is good. I mean, killing Jews is good, or raping little children is good. I mean, God has not given to anyone that kind of a moral conscience in the childhood. So,
Couldn't
uh,
couldn't Hitler but couldn't Hitler look at Numbers 13:17
mm,
to 18
mm,
and then
mm,
this and then think to himself that uh,
mm,
sorry,
mm.
I'm just getting a quote. I'm just going to read it. Couldn't Hitler look at Numbers 13, 17, 18 and go, oh, okay, like it's a good idea to pillage other nations? Like, couldn't he do that?
Only if God had told anywhere in the Bible that what was said in number 31 is the perfect moral standard. Only if God said that.
Well,
God never said that.
it says in Numbers 31. These are instructions from God in Numbers 31
To Israel, it's not Hitler. Okay.
to Israel. But couldn't Hitler look at that and go, well, God gave us an example to kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but to save for yourself every girl who has never slept with a man, to take the virgin women for yourself.
If God said somewhere that that is the moral standard, that's the perfect moral standard. God never said that. That is
Yeah.
not the perfect moral standard, and Israel's would also be
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
judged.
whoa, whoa, whoa! Wait, wait. Is it
Mm,
moral? I'm asking you two things. One, is it moral?
mm,
And secondly,
mm.
does your moral consciousness collide with that?
I mean, are you asking about Numbers 31, or are you asking about Hitler's interpretation of Numbers 31? Which one
No,
are you
no.
asking?
I'm asking you about Numbers 31. So I'm asking
Oh,
you
about
one.
Israelites. Yeah, about Israelites, whether that is moral or not, right?
Do you think? Yeah. So what I'm asking, because you keep referring to this
Mm,
moral
okay.
consciousness. Does your moral consciousness say that was a good thing to do?
Yeah, it's basically not the perfect thing. Obviously, I mean, it lacks the perfectness of morality, obviously, but it is. If you talk about the other ways of how people used to do it during those days, it is comparably better. That doesn't justify the fact that, I mean, that doesn't like negate the fact that it is not a perfect moral I mean, way of doing things. So yeah, the moral conscience that I have now, obviously, uh, I mean, has something in conflict with that, but God never claimed that that is the perfect moral standard, and that's my point. And the reason why I think God allowed them to do is probably because those people were not having the willingness to do things that are of perfect moral standard. I mean, if obviously if Jesus was there, if all the people were having the standard of Jesus' morality, obviously God wouldn't have asked them to do that. But because they are not, uh,
Well, hang on,
maybe
hang
God.
on. These were direct instructions from God that He says kill the boys. Why did the boys need to die there?
Oh, maybe because Israelites were not so moral that they are willing to
No,
bring the
this
boy.
instructions.
Let me complete. Can you complete? Can you make let me complete?
Wait,
I mean,
hang on. You ramble on for so long. I'm asking you a very simple question, right?
hmm.
Was it moral? Does your moral consciousness? This is a yes or no. Does your
I
moral
said
consciousness?
no. I said no. I mean, I said no. It doesn't match with my moral conscience. I already said that.
Okay,
It
cool.
doesn't
Well, no,
match.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that in the 400 words you said. I'm sorry.
Oh, I
I'm
said
just
firstly. I said. I mean, so you can see the video later. I said it and then I made the explanation. I said that obviously is not the perfect moral standard, which means that it conflicts with
wait.
my
Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, if it conflicts with your moral standards, right, and it's in the Bible as instructions from God, how do you rectify that?
There's nothing to rectify because God never said that that is the true moral
They're
standard.
His
So
instructions.
to people who are not having willingness to obey the perfect moral standard, so that
What?
there is
Why can God say don't eat shrimp, but then
no.
he has to tell them to kill baby boys?
Because not eating shrimp might be after some a few iterations of living might be very simple, but at this time given their willingness to bring other children of other people and raise them by their own money, I don't think they are willing to do that kind of a sacrifice of their money or some things like that. So those are all possible. Obviously it's not written in Bible, so I mean, other possibilities could exist, but this is a possibility, and I think this is uh, perhaps the more likely possibility that why God has asked them to, God has instructed them to do that.
I mean, if that was in the Quran, you wouldn't accept it, right?
It depends on the context, even if it's in Quran or whatever it is. I mean, why would I?
The
I mean, I
context
never.
is God is giving moral instructions to a group of people, and He tells them to
Where,
go
where,
kill.
where is it written that it's moral instruction to a perfect standard? I mean, nothing is there.
So sorry. That's such a bullshit answer because
Mm,
you're saying you're trying to get around it by saying it wasn't perfectly moral laws, but
mm.
you're forgetting the fact that God could have asked them to do anything and chose to tell them to go kill the infant boys and to take the virgin women for yourself. Like you
God is
can't tell
also.
me like this is like so far this is like so far beyond why like this is this like Hitler could have easily looked at this and gone, oh yeah, this is a great idea. Like this is like the exact same thing as what like it was genociding a group of people, and it's all through the Old Testament instructed by God. Couldn't you just say, well, Hitler wasn't working? Where did it say that Hitler needed to be perfectly moral? Like what are you talking about?
The problem is you are assuming that just because God has instructed Israelites to do it, when Israelites did it, God would be treating Israelites to have done perfectly the right thing. That's not the case. God would judge Israelites for having the unwillingness to do this. And the point here is, I think you perhaps have not read the New Testament, which says that. I mean, the Old Testament is just a schoolmaster to bring people to faith. So, if Hitler read that verse, I don't think Hitler would have misunderstood these words. Like, I think I'm sorry to say, but you're not. You're also misunderstanding that if you have read the verse, I think Galatians third chapter, 23 to 25, somewhere like that. I guess it
Do,
says
do you-
that. Yeah, it is just a schoolmaster to bring people to the actual true moral standard. I
yeah.
mean, if not with the exact word, it says that it's a schoolmaster to bring people to faith, which has been revealed by Jesus Christ. So it is not a perfect moral standard. Anyone who reads the whole Bible would understand that. And Hitler, if
Okay.
read the whole Bible,
Okay. Have you read the whole Bible?
a lot of it, not exactly, but a lot of it, I guess.
Do you believe that God gives everyone free will?
Um, in terms of moral aspects,
Morality,
yes.
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
do you have your Bible in front of you? Can you at all?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Do you have a Bible in front of you?
I have to get it there. If you want, I can get it there.
Well, I can just tell you, if you open it to Exodus 9, verses 12, it says, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he would not listen to Moses and Aaron.
Yeah, there are different ways of interpreting that. I mean, God hardening Moses' cause, Moses, I mean, like Pharaoh's heart could also mean that God did not give a special guidance for Pharaoh to easily see things, and with the unwillingness that Pharaoh already had by virtue of his free will, he ended up doing this. So it could be an interpretation. That could be a possible interpretation. So if that's the interpretation, then I don't see any problem in that.
It says, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart that he would not listen to Moses and Aaron.
Yeah, we have
And
to.
then, hang on. And then he went on to kill all the infant boys. He sent angels to kill the infant boys of in Egypt.
Pharaoh, infant boys. I mean, who? I mean, Pharaoh killed the infant boys.
No. God sent angels to kill every firstborn child in.
It's not written that it's a child. It's firstborn. Yes, there might be some people who are children, but it's just firstborn. I mean, it could be a 50-year-old person having 30-year-old child firstborn. It is also possible. So it's not written as children. But yeah, you're saying that God has, I mean, sent an angel to kill the firstborn. Okay, what about that?
As a result of the Lord hardening Pharaoh's heart, children died.
Yes.
Because if Pharaoh listened to Moses and Aaron, which is what God wanted, they would have let the Israelites go, right?
It depends on what you mean by hardening of Pharaoh's heart. Do you mean to say that God has removed the free will, or do you mean to say that God has removed the special guidance that He gave to Moses? I mean, which one of it are you interpreting? I mean, in which way you're interpreting these two?
I
The
don't know,
answer
man.
depends
Use your moral intuition. What do you think the verse is saying?
Yeah, it's quite possible that God, by saying that God hardened the Pharaoh's heart, it could mean that God has stopped giving the special guidance that he was perhaps giving to Moses, etc. He stopped giving. I mean, he did not give that to Pharaoh. And I can show some examples. Like, for example, Absalom had, like, I mean, has done some illegal thing with David's one of David's concubines. God said that I will let your wives sleep with some other people, but obviously God didn't do it. Some other people ended up doing it. It's possible that God has not stopped them from doing it, which could mean God actually did it. So that interpretation is possible. That interpretation is possible. If that is the interpretation, then I don't see much wrong thing. And I would like to say that if you're arguing whether God is good or not, God has to obey the obligations that we humans are supposed to do, I don't think that is the case. You can call God immoral, but that doesn't mean
No,
that
I'm
God.
not. I'm not calling God immoral. I'm saying stop teasing the creator of the universe, because if there is one, he most likely isn't the genocidal maniac this holy book is making him out to be.
Okay,
I'm
so
saying stop teasing God. Because
so
right now, if you're saying that God is telling people, that the creator of the universe is telling people to go kill another tribe of people and to kill the little infant boys, but to take the virgin girls for yourself and to harden the Pharaoh's heart so that he can show off a little bit more with some more plagues and pestilence and killing of virgins and virgin little boys and stuff, then I'm telling you, stop teasing God. It's not okay. That's what I'm doing.
so
I'm not saying God's
okay.
immoral. I'm saying stop saying that the creator of the universe would do such a thing. Because if there is one, he isn't the genocidal maniac you're making him out to be.
Okay, so let's make a conclusion. So if you don't want to believe that Old Testament is word of God, okay, let it be. But that's the fact remains that the moral value, value of moral conscience is a playing role of the free will, right? I mean, you can freely
Okay, all right.
believe that
This
Old
this is
Testament is
this
not
is
the word of God. There is
this
nothing
is
that stops you. Yeah.
Jacob. This is what we'll do. Okay, all right.
Mm.
People can go to your Discord and they can continue this conversation with you. But just to give you the last word, in this discussion, please just spend as much time as you need and lay out what your theory of free will is, so then everyone can understand it.
Oh, I already did it. It's simply about choosing morality at the price of sacrificing comfort versus choosing comfort by violating morality. It's as simple as that. I had been saying this since long. So that is my definition of my free will. So I have been saying
Okay. Thanks for the conversation, Jacob. Everyone, make sure you check out Jacob's Discord and feel free to have a chat there. I fear that some of this must got lost in the weeds a little bit, and I didn't fully understand. My bad. But thank you so much, Jacob, and I'll see you another time.
Yeah, thank you too. Thank you for.
Oh God. Was it just me? Was anyone following that? Like anything that he was saying? I wasn't following any of that. I'm just going to answer some of these questions. How was his conclusion shorter than like a quick yes no answer? Like how was him wrapping up everything shorter than like a yes no answer? Yeah. Anyway, it was so good to see Jenna, Hidden Queen in the chat. It was good to look at the trees. Hey, how you doing? Could he choose not to be hungry? This is like a good example of like you don't choose your wants. You don't choose what you want, right? I'm a complicated houseplant. Fucking Hidden Queen, you gotta love her. Titan Uranus, that's awesome. I have no idea. I don't know if he knows he's being evasive with his answers. I don't know what the fixation was with comfort. Yeah, lots of word salad. Yeah. Thank you. I know that we probably disagree, Mike. God killing shouldn't be looked at as some shocker. If you had the power to bring the dead back to life, and then when you end life, it's a rather simple thing to raise it back up. What does that mean? God killing should be looked at as some shocker. If you had the power to bring the dead back to life, then when you end life, it's a rather simple thing to raise it back up. So are you saying that because, and I'm not going to scream at you like I did with him, but are you saying that it's okay for the Israelites to kill the infant children because they're going to go to heaven or something? Yeah, I don't know. You might have left, but God hardens me every morning. That's not okay. That's not okay. Look at the trees. That's not okay. You don't think it's right yourself? That's interesting, though. Why don't you think it's right yourself? Because most Christians, and I'm assuming, Mike, that you're still a Christian, that will say that they'll say to atheists like me, "Where do you get your morality from?" And then I say it's subjective, etc., etc. And then they say, "Well, I get my morality from the Bible," but you say you don't think it's right. It doesn't feel right to you, right? Why? I mean, these are tough questions, and like a lot of Christians will just say, like, "Oh, well, it was the end of, it was the Old Testament. It's a different time, but these are instructions from God." And like to spell out everything that I was going to kind of go through. Did Adam and Eve? Did Adam know? Did God know Adam and Eve was going to sin before He created them exactly the way they were? Because if He knew, like from my naturalist perspective, I believe that I can't function. I can't be conscious if I drive a stake through my brain. I can't just all of a sudden be like, well, I choose to still go on. Like I'm controlled by this thing in my head. I'm controlled by my brain. Like I can't help it. I have to. I'm a slave to the biological processes. I'm depressed, I take an antidepressant. If it's one that suits the type of serotonin that I need, I stop being depressed. If I'm anxious and I take a Valium, I'm no longer anxious. Like my brain is how I experience everything. It's like I'm trapped, but I can't use my consciousness to start affecting other things in the world, right? So I imagine that that Adam and Eve were the same, right? And they were created, and God knew the environment they would be in. He knew every single variable they would be in. He knew everything, and he knew the brains they would have, and he knew the choices they would make under certain brain states. Then, so, and he still chose to make them that way. They had no other option. Like they couldn't have surprised God, right? I wonder if I'm just gonna draw something. I'm gonna put it over here. All right, hang on. I'm gonna share a screen. Okay, sharing screen, right? So if we have, and I saw this on another streamer's thing, but if we have like a hill, right, and there's like a tree, let's say there's like a shrub, then there's like a tree here, and there's like a bunch of rocks. Let's say we have a rock up the top here, okay, and we push this rock down the hill. If I know every single thing that's going to happen, if I know every single variable, so if I know the velocity, if I know the acceleration, if I know the friction of the rock, if I know the wind speed, defined as W here, if I know everything that's going to collide with, the angles, if I know everything, if I know all these things, we can determine with 100% accuracy where the rock's going to end up. It's going to end up here, okay? Now, if we were to play this back again, right, all the same variables, exactly the same, the rock would 100% land here every single time. Doesn't matter how many times you do it, every single time, the rock would land here, okay? Not where the X's are, but like actually here. So to me, the brain is just a much, much, much more complicated version of this rock and a hill. Okay, there's like neurons that are formed. It's based off the genetic code. It's brain chemistry is based off the genetic code. How it all works is based off the genetic code. If anyone wants to check out youtube.com/deepdrinks, you can go check out Shannon Q explain exactly where she thinks consciousness comes from, and how she doesn't even think it's possible for something like a soul to be able to manipulate the brain. She studied psychology. She knows a lot of neuroscience, and she goes all through it, right? So to me, this is what our brains are, all right? Brain. So our brains are just a much more complicated version of this, okay? Now, what also affects the brain is the environment, okay? So environment, okay? So this is also playing a role. So environment includes like the foods you eat, where you grew up, like if you were, if you were shown pornography at an early age, you're much more likely to get addicted to pornography when you're older, or sex when you're older. You wire those things in your brain. If you if you're fed a lot of like certain foods, you'll have certain reactions. If you live in Chernobyl, you're going to have radiation poisoning. It's going to affect your cognitive abilities, etc. The environment, beyond just like the actual environment, but like things outside of your brain affect your brain, okay? And those two things seem to, for me, to sum up a deterministic universe, right? Our universe is deterministic. And so when we have Adam and Eve, I won't draw boobs. I'll just do hair. but I was tempted to draw boobs. Fuck, I'm a child. So you got Adam and Eve. Their brains are just these things. And the environment, the Garden of Eden, is just this thing. They're the only two things that are affecting anything. And if God, the creator of the universe, knows everything, he's omnipresent, he knows absolutely everything about everything. He's like, and he's all powerful and he's all loving. Like, he created everything. And he created this situation in which they could not choose anything else but to eat the fruit. There was no other option for them but to eat the fruit, right? They couldn't do anything else, because the only way you can get around this is if you say, and I've heard Christians say this, yep, there is no other option and God's just evil. Or not evil, but he's like, that's just how it is. And that's what Calvinists have told me. Yep, sorry. That's just how the universe is. That's how God set it up. Or the other thing you can do is say, God doesn't know everything. And that would actually make more sense to me, because when God is walking through the Garden of Eden, he's calling out to Adam and Eve, where are you hiding? Like, where are you? Right? Like, that's part of like the story in Genesis. But if you believe that God is all-knowing and all-powerful, you cannot subscribe to free will. Like, to me, it just makes no sense. Looking at this, okay. Terrible tree, by the way. The tree looks fine objectively. I'm an authority at looking at trees. It's okay. Exactly. That's why I never subscribe to Omni stuff. Like, I'm like, where did you learn all that from? Conditions, they say. That's interesting. That's interesting. Well, everyone, thank you for watching this. I don't know if it was entertaining or this interesting conversation, whatever, but I'll see you guys another time. So this Saturday on Deep Drinks, we have a political streamer who's a bit of a spicy one called Stardust. I look forward to interviewing her and learning about freedom of speech, or talking to her about freedom of speech, platforming bad faith actors. Is it okay to platform people like Richard Spencer, who she's had on her show, and people she disagrees with? And things like that. That'll be an interesting conversation. And then a conversation that we've got booked in for October 16th or 15th is the problem of evil with Michael Jones. And I said to Michael Jones, next time you come on, I want to push back a little bit harder. So this time, that's what I'm going to be doing. Everyone knows I'm a huge fanboy of Michael Jones, but this time I'm putting the gloves on and we're going to duel it out and have a deep conversation over some scotch about the problem of evil. Anyway, thanks for everyone for watching. Go check out youtube.com/deepdrinks. Subscribe to this channel if you like content like this, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.